James, Dante's been here for a couple weeks now. How's he looked so far? How's he fitting in the locker room? What's he been like?
Yeah, good. I mean, as you guys know, we only get so much interaction with them as coaches, but what we have seen has been good. Also talking to the quarterbacks and the DBs and the receivers. He's also got a personality that I think comes in and meshes in our locker room really well. He's got a lot of humility, doesn't talk a whole lot. Obviously, he's from Pennsylvania, he's got friends on the team, so all those things I think also help, with the adjustment. Tested well in our initial testing. And then, talking to the guys on the team, they've been impressed with him out there. So I do think this level of training, no knock to anybody else or other programs or other schools, I do think this is different for him. And I think in a lot of ways that's exciting because the lifting and the running is at a very different level. And I think his body really has a chance to explode and develop over the time that hopefully we have him. So, so far so good.
James, there's a few guys we didn't get a chance to see during spring ball. Tyler Warren, Theo Johnson at tight end, Tyler Elston, and then also Keziah Izzard. Are you able to give any updated status as you're a couple months away from any of the practice field again?
Yeah, they're all good to go. We had a decent number of surgeries right after the season ended. So that's why we did it then. Obviously they'd missed spring ball, but now they're all back and ready to go. And that's a lot of really good players and a ton of experience. You think about how critical the tight ends were for us last year. So to not have those two guys, for spring ball, in some ways, sometimes that's a blessing in disguise because now it forces the other guys to get a ton of reps. But the other thing I've been trying to talk to the wideouts about as well is, a lot of times the wideouts think they're just competing with the wideouts, right? Well, they're also competing with the second tight end. What gives us the best chance to win? Who should be on the field? Is it 12 personnel? Is it 11 personnel? So that's part of it too. But yeah, all those guys are back, fully doing workouts and should be ready for camp. I would also say, I think our depth is better than it's ever been since we've been here. So what I'm hoping is that, we can play a lot of guys on offense, defense, and special teams to be as healthy in the fourth quarter and as healthy at the end of the season as possible. And then kind of postseason too. So hopefully we can play a ton of guys to help with that too.
James, did you come out of spring ball with a QB1? And if not, what is the schedule for figuring out who is going to be that guy? It's been a while since we've had to ask you these questions.
Yeah, I think really every year it's the same philosophy. I think sometimes it's assumed, which I get it, but it's competition at every single position. A lot of things can happen between now and the season. So even when Sean Clifford was here for 14 years and left at 32 years old, he was competing for the starting job every single year. And if he would get beat out, that would have been his problem, not mine. So we have competition at every single position, every single year, returning starter or not. I think that's the right thing to do, not only for our entire program, but I also think for the starter. I was just doing an interview in there talking about having a running back room with Saquon Barkley and Miles. And I think at times there may have been some frustration with that, but I truly believe that type of competition in college really set them up to be successful in the NFL. Embracing that type of competition. Saquon always had somebody behind him trying to take reps away from him, and Miles as a young player was trying to overtake Saquon. So I think That is a healthy position to be in, and we want that in every room at every position.
With next year's Big Ten schedule coming out in a few hours, what are your thoughts on reported what project no division scheduling that's been out there? So
It's above my pay grade. That's a Pat question, that's a commissioner question. I am excited and looking forward to getting prepared, this year for this season, for the schedule that we have, for West Virginia at our place to open the season. Those things are outside of my control, and really right now outside of my concern. When we have meetings as head coaches and ADs, we state our opinions very similar to the opinions that I stated when I was in the SEC as a head coach as well. And at that point, the commissioner's got to make a decision and move forward. It's the same way here. For me to make the best decisions, I got to hear from the players, I got to hear from the staff, I got to hear from the coaches, but then ultimately I got to make the best decision that I think is for Penn State, football specifically. So, West Virginia, training camp, Manny versus Mike versus Manny, all that good stuff is really my focus.
James, to follow up on Mark's question regarding the quarterbacks, you have spoken highly about Drew recently. What do you see in him? What did you see from him this spring? How good can he be?
Yeah, so a couple things. He's probably more of what we used to call the prototype in the NFL. That's changed. Now there's guys that are 5'10" running around the NFL. Mobility has become a huge deal in the NFL, and that really wasn't the case in the past at that position. So he's more of kind of the old school prototype quarterback. He's 6'5", he's 242 pounds. I took him out to dinner the other day. He tried to convince me that he's leaner than he's ever been, even though he weighs more than he's ever been. I was like, interesting. Yeah. But is in a really good place, and I think the things that stand out is now it's year 2 in the same system. He's got a body type that's going to allow him to either withstand some hits, but I also think he has the mobility, and the size helps him sometimes step out of an arm tackle or a sack that a guy reaches out. He has the ability to do that. But I think the thing that probably stood out to me the most, everybody wants to talk about the arm, and he makes some throws. Joel Klatt, I remember, I think the first game of the year is Purdue. I think they had that game, right, Steve?
Right.
And Joel was standing there like drooling on the field, watching Drew. But the thing that I think probably stood out to me the most is when he got in the Purdue game as a true freshman, he just was like super poised. And you can do all the drills you want, throwing and footwork and run game fundamentals and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, it's hard to teach that, the poise in the pocket. And he just seems to have that. There can be chaos all around him, and he just is efficient with his movement. Some guys move in the pocket more than they need to, and they actually move into problems. So it's just moving enough, keeping your eyes up when you do scramble. He showed some examples of that last year. We stepped up in the pocket and made a big throw with pressure. And he's able to make people defend the entire field because of his arm. Most college defenses will give you something, they have to. So most college defenses are going to give you the furthest flat. So say the ball's into the boundary, they're going to try to make throwing into the boundary in the middle of the field difficult, but they're going to give you the furthest flat, the field flat, because most colleges can't make those types of throws, whether it's an out or a hitch or a hinge or whatever you want to call it. He has the ability to make those throws and make you defend the 53 1/3. which is really valuable. The other thing that happens with arm strength, everybody gets excited about arm strength, but you better have accuracy. But when you do have arm strength and accuracy, it creates opportunities for yards after the catch. Because if I'm running the route on you and I have separation from you, but the ball comes and it's kind of doesn't have a whole lot of pace on it. Now, while I'm going to catch the ball, you're closing the distance, and now it's a catch tackle. Where if that ball can get to you fast, where you still have separation, it creates an opportunity for run after the catch. So there's a lot of things like that to be excited about. He's also good in the meeting room. I think Sean Clifford, really helped with that. So there's a lot of things to be excited about, but we got to build on it and take the next step. Speaking of Sean Clifford, you guys see he had an unbelievable 2-minute drive in practice. You guys see that?
Twitter. Chuck mentioned.
Love it.
Chuck mentioned Theo Johnson as someone that's stepping up from a leadership standpoint. How have you seen him take strides there? And obviously he was charged with 2 misdemeanors in the spring. Will there be any internal program punishments from that?
So Theo Johnson and leadership in West Virginia, happy to talk about those things. Obviously having him back as a player, there's a ton of value in that. When you talk about leadership, it's very obvious to us right now as a staff and the players that it's really important for Theo to have a significant leadership role this year. You can see him trying to take on that role and being more vocal compared to how he's been in the past, and how his teammates are receiving that information. The impact he's having on others. So all those things have been great and valuable, and we're happy to have him back. In terms, I think you guys know, for 10 years, we're going to have discipline in this program. We always have. That will continue, but just like in the past, I'm not going to get into the specifics and details of those things. I don't think there's any reason or don't feel like those things are necessary. And then we're also going to do the homework on any type of incident that happens and find out what really happened. And then the penalty will align with that. But I'm not ever going to be quick to react until we have all the information.
James, you've said a healthy Penn State football is good for the athletic department. What does that mean? What does that look like in 2023? And how do you want to be one of the leading programs of this athletic department?
Well, I think a healthy Penn State football is not just good for the athletic department. It's good for this community. It's good for this state. The hotels, the restaurants, the bars. We're all in this thing together, in this community. And I think we know a lot of business comes from a healthy Penn State football program. I think it's good for the Big Ten. There's a lot of reasons why it's important. So from an athletic department stuff, I'll let Pat speak on those specifics and those things. But for us, we got a job to do, which is to put our players in the best position to be successful, to get Penn State degrees, to represent this university and this community the right way, and to go out on the field and compete at a very high level in what you could argue is the best division in college football. So there's a lot that comes with that. We don't really look at it as pressure. It's exciting, and it's why you come to a place like Penn State. So, but specific to the athletic department, it's probably a question for Pat.
James, there's a lot of buzz about this program this year. What has to happen in preseason camp to meet your expectations for this team?
Yeah, my expectations is to have great workouts this morning. We did. To go to class and have a great day in class, to go into the community and make great choices in the community, to have a great training camp, to finish summer with the best GPA we've had, have a great training camp, get better, create more depth, get healthy, put us in the best position to beat West Virginia, be 1-0, let you guys go on TV or radio or the internet and talk about that, have good things to talk about, and keep doing that each week and see where that leads us. Obviously, I do think there's some value in starting the season ranked highly. I think it makes the path a little bit easier to get where you want to go at the end of the season. But I think a good example of that, would be TCU last year. I don't think they were ranked, in the top 25 or something like that before the season and made the playoffs. I don't think we were ranked in the top 25 before the season and finished, I think, number 7 or somewhere like that. So all that stuff is good, creates a bunch of people to show up today. Again, it's good for the community, it's good for the state, it's good for our conference, it's good for Penn State. But at the end of the day, all that stuff really doesn't matter. And the guys in that locker room and in this building that are working the right way. We had a discussion, I think it was this morning actually, and to talk about all these things like goals and objectives that people have and expectations, it's great. We may do that 1 or 2 times a year, but what really matters is, do our habits and our actions align with who we say we want to be and where we want to go? If not, it's just talk with nothing to really back it up.
James, what can you tell us about Andy Frank and how he's adapted to the various changes in college football, especially as it pertains to recruiting?
Andy Frank is the man. Been with me for a long time. Been with me for really my entire head coaching career. When I showed up at Vanderbilt, he was on the staff there already. Has been very loyal to me. Been very loyal to Penn State. Is a smart, really smart guy. Sometimes I question that. He's got an engineering degree from Princeton and he went into football. But really smart. He also does a very good job from a compliance standpoint, knows the rules inside and out. Just got back from Indianapolis with our compliance department to have kind of more of a practitioner there talking about kind of the game and what we're really, what the real challenges are and what we're dealing with. Everybody does it different. Some people have kind of guys like Andy that are leading the department that are front and center, the recruiters, and Andy's really not that. He's kind of more of a behind the scenes organization type guy. But Andy, after all these years, is like family to me. A lot of loyalty there, a lot of trust there, a lot of love and respect. But has done a great job, and I'm glad you brought him up because he deserves more attention and more credit.
James, what went into the decision to create the position of Director of High School Relations, and can you talk about the hiring of Bob Palco?
Yeah, so Director of High School Relations is a pretty common position. It was kind of a position that I've kind of had on my wish list for a long time. And obviously with Pat and Vinny, I brought it up to them and what I was thinking. Pat's a guy that Coach Palco's a guy that I had identified, I've known for a long time through recruiting, but really we started talking about this about 4 or 5 years ago, if he'd have any interest in moving into college. Then obviously when I had this conversation with Pat, and I didn't realize I reached out to Coach and he had just retired, which in a lot of ways that worked out perfect. In some ways this is kind of a retirement job, the way we have it structured and set up. But you're talking about a guy that understands the game, most importantly understands young men, and I think is another resource for them and for our staff. He's won, I think, 9 WPIL championships, 2 state championships, I think, was National Coach of the Year, was a part of the Army All-American game for 12 years, so he knows other high-profile coaches throughout the country. And for me, whenever I went into his high school, I liked going into his high school. He was organized, he was fun, he loved the kids, he had passion for the sport and for the game. And I'd leave out of there every time saying, God, if we ever had an opportunity, I'd love to get that guy on our staff. And then I called him, and it kind of moved fast. I called him and offered him the job, and he said he was coming. I said, you got to talk to your wife. He said, no, we're coming, which is what you want, So pretty cool to have him in the building. I think he'll be a really good resource, for our players in a lot of different ways. You probably read the job description. There's a lot of other things that go into it as well, but most importantly, he's going to be a guy that's going to be around our players, 18 hours a day.
You added Ford and Collins out of the transfer portal after spring at defensive tackle and corner. What are your expectations for those guys this year, and then why those positions important to you to address?
Yeah, so corner, as you know, we had gone to the transfer portal and got a young man, and then that young man ended up leaving. So, finding another guy like that was important. We went back and watched his high school tape. He's a little bit different situation because he's got 4 years of eligibility, which is unusual. So we had to go back and watch his high school tape. We really liked his high school tape. And then I'm not one of these guys. I'm not going into the portal and taking a guy without calling the previous school. It's amazing how many guys I see that happens with, and they have no idea. So for us, I called Mississippi State, had a good conversation with their head coach there, and he's come here and done well. He's tested well. He's quick and he's fast and he's explosive. He needs to eat a few sandwiches, but besides that, we've been impressed so far. And he's an awesome kid. Loved him and his dad on the visit, so that's been a good fit for us, and we'll see how that plays out, whether it's depth or whether it's starter or whether it's special teams. That's to be determined. That's up to him and what he does with the opportunity. And then I just felt like we needed a little bit more depth at D tackle. Again, those positions, there's a lot of physicality and contact. So having some guys with experience, at those positions and depth, being able to watch him on tape against Virginia and against Virginia Tech, and how he played against those opponents was helpful for us because we feel like that's got the best ability for us to kind of determine how his skills will transfer at this level. But then also obviously having Ricky Ronnie, one of my former staff members, as the head coach there, being able to call him and get feedback there as well. Varina High School, where Michael Robinson and Kavion Keys are from, that helped too. And another guy that has multiple years of eligibility is really a 3-for-2 guy, so that helps too. But I think, for us, as you guys know, we'd like to build it with high school players, but when you can go out and solve some problems, whether it's starters or depth, with proven commodities from other colleges, that helps. We also like the guys that have multiple years because it gives them time to adjust to.
James, during the course of this spring, whenever we brought up receivers, you kept the list pretty short, the individual you mentioned. I know Omari kind of shook that up in the blue-white game. Are you able to kind of share some progress within that position room now that you're a couple months removed from spring ball?
Yeah, I thought Omari, the way he ended spring ball, I think really helped. I think that really helped us. Feeling like we had 3 guys that had done it in Beaver Stadium. Obviously, you got Malik Mega, who's played a ton of football here, and we're going to need him to continue to compete for one of those jobs. Malik McLean is a guy that was a lot of buzz, especially from you guys, about him coming in. It's going to be interesting. He looked great this morning, running and moving around. I've heard great things about him. I noticed Caden Saunders, he kind of jumped out to me. Anthony Ivy's probably one of the more natural receivers that we have. There's a bunch of guys I could mention. I know I probably missed some guys, and some mom or guy's going to be upset with me. But there's a number of guys that I think have the ability. Liam's a guy that I don't think gets talked enough about. He's got a chance because he's got the intelligence and understanding the offense. He can play multiple positions. So I think we came out of spring saying, okay, we feel good that we got 2 and a question mark on third, and then Omari came on. But I think there's more guys that are going to be a part of this conversation after training camp. I think there's guys that are close enough to having a chance to help us win in this conference, but they had to take a step, and a significant step, from the end of spring to the summer. But I think they're capable. You know, we got a bunch of guys that are capable. Caden Saunders this morning I thought looked really good. So there's some guys that are going to have an opportunity to go win a role, and a significant role, but they got to go do it. And they got to go do it. We don't make any promises around here. You get what you earn. You can help us beat West Virginia, you'll be on the field.
Thanks, James.
Thank you.